Hi, welcome to Podium 018. And this week we've got a very special show, and it is taken from a webinar that I held recently called Achieving Performance Excellence in Sport. And it's with my mentor, Dr. George Pransky from Pransky and Associates. I really hope you enjoy the show, and we have a few parts to this conversation, so tune in for the next few weeks. So just before we join the show, let me just read a little bit about Dr. George Pransky. He is one of the two professional founders of the understanding of the principles of mind, thought and consciousness. He has taught the principles for over 30 years to individuals, couples, businesses and colleagues. Dr. Pransky is the author of the Relationship Handbook and over 50 audio recordings. During his career, he has served on the faculty of 3 graduate universities and continues to pioneer this understanding in new industries. Currently, he is a partner at Pransky and Associates and on the executive committee of the 3 Principles Global Community. So let's just go straight over now to that conversation. In relation to the title that we came up with, Achieving Performance Excellence in Sport, what are the benefits of sports people joining this conversation?
Well, I think it's obvious and something that people can observe that everything goes through the mind. Everything goes through the mind. So if you, for example, were to interfere with the brain in some way, a neurologist would tell you exactly, or a brain specialist would tell you exactly what things the person couldn't do now that you interfered with the brain in that way. So everything in the body, everything we do starts with our thinking and starts with what goes on in our mind. So just to give a simple example, when a person tries to thread a needle, that person will have to make some kind of an adjustment to get their mind quiet enough that they can concentrate and focus so as to thread the needle. Even a simple thing like that. So when people's minds are, and the intelligence in their minds is not available to them because their minds are otherwise engaged or troubled or distracted or whatever, you'll see their performance, their ability to perform go down, whether they're cooking or whether they're athletes or whether they're painters, painting a room. It doesn't matter what activity human beings are doing. When their minds are occupied and not available in the moment, you'll see a drop in their performance. Now, once their minds are free and available in the moment, the freer their minds are and the deeper their minds go, the better their performance. And that explains why you have athletes talking about being in the zone. The zone is just a very, very free mind that is able to be visited by the intelligence behind life. So when a person's mind is free, their instincts, their inclinations, everything is more available to them. That's why in America, at least, all the sports now have psychologists on staff. All the teams. This wasn't true in the 50s. 50s people had no idea that the mind mattered at all. They had strength coaches and stuff like that. Now they have psychologists and they read all these books, and the coaches are concerned about the psychology of the team. They'll say, well, yeah, we won the game, but I don't like that people got so disgruntled and serious, or we've got to change the spirit of this organization. So the coaches now are very, very, very aware of the mental part of sports. Very aware of it, more so than business people. Way more so than business people. And even the owners are aware of it. Like, they're looking at the psychology of people when they're doing the draft. They're looking at whether the person is moody, whether they got into trouble, whether they're troubled, whether they're high-spirited. So when they talk about who they're going to draft, they're considering these psychological, emotional factors.
So, George, in terms of traditional psychology, as a national coach, I would have been involved in mental skills development for over 20 years. And that was very much getting involved to change, manipulate, or transform, if you like, a person's thinking. So manipulate and control it in order for them to have a clearer mind. And I know that this is not that. I know that, from what I've seen, this, for me, is going right underneath that. And I just wonder if you can talk to the differences between traditional, if you like, sports psychological approaches to what it is that we're pointing to here with an understanding of the human experience and where performance comes from.
Well, when I went to graduate school, back in the dark ages, I went to graduate school. And no matter what course you took or what approach you were taught about, the assumption was that you're helping people with their hang-ups, you're helping people with their bad patterns, you're helping people with their memories, you're helping people with their thoughts, you're helping people with their feelings. So there was an assumption that you had to help each individual specifically with what's plaguing them psychologically. That was the assumption. And every approached it differently. There were 400 approaches. But that was the common denominator, was if you want to help someone to have a nicer life or to perform better in sports or to be have a better relationship, you have to get into their personal psychology and make some adjustments. It's like edit it, you might say. You edit their psychology. Now, it was an absolute shocker to me when I met Sydney Banks in 1976, and he suggested to the contrary. He said, George, you don't have to deal with people's individual hang-ups and individual psychology. All you have to do is teach them how the mind works and how their psychology is created and how their experience is created. And if they understand that, they can be their own psychologist. They can deal with their own psychology. So to give you just a simple example, if a person worries, let's say you have an athlete and they just get, worried about whether they're going to play well or who they're playing against or whether they're going to be able to keep their job or whether they're going to substitute for them. So let's say you have an athlete and they just happen to get concerned and worried, okay? Now, you could help in the traditional way. You would help them with a specific concern. So if their concern was that they haven't been playing well and they're going to feel under pressure to do well, and that pressure is going to work against them, you could talk with them about, the way they deal with pressure and why they feel like their job is at risk and all that, and help them with that specific concern that they have. Now, what Sydney Banks said, the guy that I learned from, is, look, George, Never mind about that worry. More importantly is worry with a capital W. In other words, if you could teach that person about the nature of worry with a capital W and how human beings are able to transcend worry with a capital W, that would be way more leveraged and way easier to do than dealing with a specific worry, and much more valuable. And then he said, now, taking it to a deeper level, if you can teach a person how to relate to their own thinking in a healthy way, and then worry would be a part of the thinking, it would just be one type of thinking. If you could help them to see the nature of thought and how our relationship could be with thought, where thinking would be more transient and we wouldn't get stuck on certain thoughts, that would be more leverage than just teaching them about worry. Now, as you expand it and say, well, let's go to a deeper level, deeper level, deeper level, deeper level, the deepest level is what we call the principles, the understanding of the nature of our psychological lives. The fact that we are thinkers, primarily thinkers, that's what we do for our whole lives. That's the common denominator of everybody's life. The fact that all of our thinking is brought to life to look like our experience of life. It makes life look the way it does. It gives us the experiences that we do. And that behind that is an infinite intelligence that is available and accessible to us as human beings. So ultimately, when you teach someone the nature of how the mind works, and the nature of the human experience, everything else that they're struggling with is going to be a subset of that knowledge. That's the premise behind this, Denise. And that's how it was a completely new direction for me. I had to turn around 180 degrees and go from dealing with each person's subjective and personal realities to teaching about human beings and the nature of human life.
When they go home, they're, like you say, even if you took the one thing, less worry, because people would have a different relationship to worrisome thinking, then that part of their life, they basically get those living minutes back. You know, that's huge leverage. And I love that what you've just pointed to there.
Well, you know, Denise, one of the interesting phenomenons over here in the States is that there are athletes that when they are on the field, their mind is like a tomb. It's really quiet. They get all this instinct and inspiration and resilience from the energy behind life, the intelligence behind life. And their minds take them to a very, very high level of performance. And not only do they perform well, but they love playing sports. Their sport, okay? They go home, they use their mind very differently, and their private life is a train wreck. You know, I mean, it's very common.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very common that people's minds are very healthy and very resourceful and used in a very healthy way during the game and during the practices. And then as soon as they change into their street clothes, their minds are a wreck. They just... And the reason for that is because they don't understand the principles behind how their mind is working when they're playing the sport. Mm. And they don't see how their mind is working when they're not playing the sport. So if they could see what was behind their ability to have such tremendous mental power when they're playing sports. They could see what was behind it. It would translate and generalize into their private lives as well. And that's what the principles do. The principles provide a foundation of understanding that shows people why their experience is what it is, where it comes from, and how the human experience is created in every instant.
That's lovely, George. One of my questions was, I think that came up was sort of pointing to this actually, and you might have answered it, but I'll ask it anyway. And it was around, that what the principles are pointing to. We don't, sports people and everyone, we don't need to know about them. We don't need to care about them. We don't need to agree with them. They're happening anyway.
Yeah.
But what I just heard in what you just said was that there is a whole heap of leverage to be had when you see and start to insightfully and profoundly see that mechanism at work. The principles in action in all of us.
It's true. Like X number of people that I talk to over the 40 years I've been teaching this have said to me the same thing. They said, George, in fact, I'm thinking of a guy now from a company that I was working. He said, George, I've always lived kind of consistent with these principles that you talk about. I've been very resilient. My thoughts come and go. I get over things quickly. I really count on the new thought and creative thought. So I have lived that way. First of all, I thought it was personal to me and my upbringing. I didn't think that there were other people that were doing that. I didn't ask, but I didn't think. And secondly, I didn't think it was teachable. I didn't think you could take someone and teach them that and they would become that way.
Yeah.
He said, now, for purposes of my business, that's worth its weight in gold. If you're telling me that you can come in and talk to my management team, and when they get done, they'll be headed in that direction, you're hired. That's it. This is the first big business job that I had. At the time, it was called Sanders and Associates. And he said, if you telling me you can teach that, you're hired. Now, can you teach that? I said, yeah. I said, I don't know if they'll catch on to it as much as you, Wes. Some of them might catch on to it more than you do. But I can tell you that I absolutely can teach people that to the point where they will be headed in that direction and they'll have a learning curve. So before that, Wes thought that it was just a idiosyncratic thing about him. It's just his father was that way. It was brought up. He had no idea that it was a human thing, and that he understood some things that enabled him to be that way.
Wow, what a real pleasure it is to be in conversation with Dr. George Pransky. And if you'd like to get hold of him, you can contact him via his website on pranskyhandassociates.com. This Sunday, the 21st of May, to Tuesday, the 23rd of May, is the annual conference for the 3 principles behind the human experience. And many people, many practitioners and speakers come in from all over the world. And it is held at Allianz Park, and it's called Life 2.0. So you can just Google that, or you can look on the 3pgc.org website. There's plenty of information there. I'm sure there are still tickets left. If you would like to join us at the conference, please do say hi. And I look forward to sharing and speaking with you again soon on next week's show. In the meantime, have a great day. Bye-bye.